Hi, Rebecca. Welcome to Dr. Judy WTF. I am very, very honored to have you on the show. A much, much needed topic. How to negotiate with a narcissist when you're breaking a contract, whether it be a divorce or business contract. And this is your specialty. Rebecca Zung, Esquire, very seasoned divorce attorney. Is that your specialty?
That has always been my specialty. I always say I'm a divorce attorney by trade, but I do a lot of other things now.
Okay, okay. And you are the author of your book called,
I have two books.
okay,
Yeah.
go ahead. Tell us a little bit about your two books.
The first one was called Breaking Free, a Step-by-Step Divorce Guide, and that one came out in 2013. And
Right?
that one, I got a testimonial from John Gray, who wrote Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. And from there,
Yes.
I did a lot of press. And then the second one that just came out in September of 19. That one is called Negotiate Like You Matter. And matter is actually the acronym for how you negotiate. And that one, the foreword was written by Robert Shapiro.
Very
So,
impressive. I noticed that. Okay.
yes. So from there, I created my Slay Your Negotiation with a Narcissist program.
Mm-hmm.
Slay is actually the acronym for how to do it.
Okay.
So that's what I've been doing in a nutshell. I still have a very limited law practice, but mostly my firm handles most of my cases at this point.
Okay. And you're local, sort of local. You're in Redondo Beach. Is that correct?
No, I live in Manhattan Beach, which is
Manhattan Beach.
outside of LA. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Well, this is a topic my fans are very fond of because a lot of the people who are tuning in are people who are survivors of narcissistic abuse. I get many, many emails, many phone calls, and many patients at the Psychological Healing Center who are suffering from narcissistic abuse. And because of the abundance of YouTubes and books and so on, and people like yourself who are waking people up to what narcissism is, people are starting to get smart and they're starting to become better defended. And one of the things we're going to talk about today, obviously, is how to defend yourself legally. Because when you're up against someone who has no empathy, who is destined to demean and devalue and destroy, you've got to have a very special set of skills. So I want to learn more about you, and I want to tell the audience that I just met Rebecca, and we plan on affiliating, and she has something special that I don't have, which is legal knowledge and how to somehow get out of a toxic bond and survive well and feel good about yourself. So I want to learn a little bit about you. How did you get into the field of dealing with narcissists?
Well, because I got into the field of doing divorce law,
Yeah.
which is kind of flooded. Narcissists don't generally stay married. So there's quite a few people who get divorced who also happen to be narcissists. So I've actually represented a lot of narcissists, and I've been on the other side of narcissists in my cases. But what really kind of sparked it for me is after I wrote my book and published the book on Negotiate Like You Matter,
Mm-hmm.
it came to my attention that two of the people that I was dealing with in my life that were just making my life miserable, not in a romantic setting. I've been married to my husband for 20 years, and
Mm-hmm.
luckily I haven't had to deal with that in a romantic situation.
Mm-hmm.
But these people were close enough to me to wreak a lot of havoc. One, it was in a business setting, and the other one was in a family, an extended family member who I read a book in December of 19 called The Covert Passive Aggressive Narcissist. And
Okay.
it's written by Debbie Mirza. I
Mm-hmm.
was reading that really more for information because I was thinking about writing or doing more videos on YouTube at that point.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I was reading it to learn more. And lo and behold, as I'm reading the book, it's becoming clearer and clearer to me that the two people that I was dealing with were that. They were covert, passive-aggressive narcissists, or they still are. And it was such a revelation to me to realize that I had actually been a target, a victim of two covert, passive-aggressive narcissists.
Okay.
So it made me so much more impassioned about helping people escape these horrible relationships.
Yes.
So I started making videos on YouTube, and my channel literally in 5 months or so has gone from basically 100 subscribers to almost 40,000, because it's what I'm speaking is resonating with so many people. People are understanding that I get it. I know, because I've been in the trenches with dealing with them as a lawyer, but I've also had to deal with them in my personal life. So that's where I created the Slay Your Negotiation with a Narcissist program that rolled out in March, and it is doing so well. I mean, it's great, and it's also so sad.
And how can people find you?
They can go to RebeccaZung.com. If they want a free Crush My Negotiation prep worksheet, which is basically an ebook, it's 15 pages and it's totally free. They can just go to winmynegotiation.com and grab it. So I do offer a lot of free resources because I'm very passionate about helping as many people to get out of these relationships, whether it's in a business setting or a divorce setting, as I possibly can.
Well, I was intrigued by your background. 3 kids by 23, then a divorce, law school, second marriage, 4th baby, 2 best-selling books, current program, and YouTube presence. So tell me about husband number 1, who obviously you're not married to any longer.
Yeah, husband number 1 was a good guy. I mean, I can't say anything bad about him, but you know, when you get married at 19, you don't really know what the hell you're doing, and we didn't really have anything in common. We had a lot of children right away. I think for me, my dad was a Chinese doctor from Shanghai. My mom is German. And she was an operating room nurse. That's how my parents met. But, you know, the German-Chinese upbringing was pretty intense. I always joke that I have no fun genes whatsoever.
No fun genes? Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's all like very, you know, work hard, very organized, efficient. And I think for me, getting married at 19 was more about escaping the control of my parents and thinking that I was going to, it was almost like my way of rebelling in some ways. I had graduated second in my class from high school, and I went on to college, and I just was like burned out already at that point. So I thought that by getting married that I would be escaping all of that, and I had all these babies right away. And it just turned out to be, you know, that I was not with the right guy, and he's a good dad. You know, I've really worked hard at not saying anything bad about him, but we just really had nothing in common. So by the time I was in my late 20s, I was already divorced with 3 kids and had been married. You know, it's crazy. I wasn't even all that old, but I felt like I had lived a whole lifetime already at that point.
Well, you sort of did, having children and then diving into law school, in spite of the fact that you were going through divorce and raising 3 children. You sort of answered this, but I wanted to delve into it a little bit more. So how did you come to focus on narcissists and negotiating with them? And I know that you developed this sense of there's a problem here. There are covert narcissists, there are overt narcissists. Was there maybe something that particularly sparked you in the direction of, you know what, I'm going to concentrate my energy on helping people with this specific dynamics in their relationship breakup?
Well, as I started to realize that I was dealing with these 2 narcissists, it also became clear to me that a lot of the people that I had dealt with in my law practice had also been narcissists. And I get the question sometimes, how could you have represented narcissists? Well, just the same as anybody ended up in a relationship with narcissists. They don't act like a narcissist while they're sitting in my office
Right.
and I'm doing an initial consultation with them.
Sure.
And they don't even seem like narcissists at all until you start representing them, and then they start coming back that everything that you do is wrong, and they start blaming the attorney, and then you start to realize, wait a minute, this person isn't who I thought they were. And of course, as the attorney, you're not seeing them all the time. I mean, it's not like you talk 50 times a day.
Right.
You see them in the initial consultation, and then you start doing work for them, and you might have a couple of telephone conversations, and maybe you meet again a few weeks later. You know, you're not spending hours on end with this person. So you don't really find out until you're already deep into the situation.
And so, as a seasoned attorney, how do you recognize a narcissist, particularly a covert narcissist? Because by the nature of the definition, they're covert, they're underground, they're not as flamboyant as the overt narcissist. So, what kinds of signs are you looking for in recognizing these individuals?
So, as it's either as an attorney or as a human being,
Well,
the
maybe
way
both.
Yes, the way you recognize a covert narcissist is once you start, so they attach themselves to you because they think they can get something out of you, some kind of narcissistic supply, because, you know, narcissists are like rats in mazes. They're just going after that one thing. They need that cheese all the time, and that cheese is their supply. So I tell people all the time that supply can come in anything that feeds their ego. And so most people think of it in terms of prestigious job or having the right attorney, you know, making sure that, okay, look at who I hired, you know. So I would end up, because I had the top practice in Southwest Florida, getting a lot of these people who wanted just my name on their pleadings, you know. But what happens is they expect a lot. You know, narcissists expect special treatment. They expect that everybody's going to, you know, give them the adulation and the respect and have the outcomes that they deserve. And so they start, as an attorney, you know, they start in on, you know, picking apart why we're billing for certain things, or you know, they start asking about reducing the retainer, or they start saying, how come you didn't do this, that, or the other thing, or how come you didn't return my phone call right away? You know, I had one woman that I ended up firing, who my paralegal slipped, when the woman had called at 9:15 in the morning one time, and my paralegal slipped and said, oh, she's on her way back to the office now. She was at a doctor's appointment this morning. And by the time I called the woman back, she's like, oh, that's great that you're at a doctor's appointment instead of working on my case. I'd love to be able to go to the doctor's, but I don't have time. You know, and so right away, you know, there that you're dealing with a narcissist, or somebody, you know, who has at least narcissistic traits, because, you know, they expect special treatment. They expect attention right away, that kind of thing.
What do you think is their driving force? What makes them tick? You know, that cheese that you were talking about?
Yeah, it's just that one thing. It's always it's always going to be about feeding that need for outside external value, because they have no inner sense of value. So they're just these fragile little people inside who decide something happened in their childhood where they came to this conclusion that they had to manipulate the world in order to get what they want. And they need an endless amount of supply. And supply, while it normally can come in the form of, or it normally is thought of as being in the form of money, compliments, respect, adulation, those kinds of things, how they most often get supply from their targets or their victims or the people close to them is by devaluing them and manipulating them, coercive control, you know, and then they go back and forth between the love bombing and the devaluing, and the love bombing and the devaluing. And that's how they keep people under their web in the vortex of craziness, because they go back and forth between love bombing and devaluing before they go into the discard phase. But even in the discard phase, they can be love bombing as they're discarding, because they still want to know, do I have control over this person? So in a divorce setting, how that will look is, oh, come on, we can work this out. You don't need that lawyer. And that lawyer is just out for the money. That lawyer is not very good. That lawyer doesn't know what he or she is doing. They have too many clients. They're not going to pay attention to you. They just want to drain all the money out of you. They're not going to get anywhere. Whatever they need to say to get that person who might also have control over their target out of the picture. And they start doing that when they're afraid that things aren't going to go their way. So that's when they start.
Basically, they're trying to get rid of you because you're the best defense against their tactics. So let's just eliminate you so that they can take the power and the control and get the brownie points that they're looking for. So that sounds like a very clever tactic that you are very, very well aware of. So part of this is being on top of it and knowing what's coming down the pike. And I actually did a show on how to talk to a narcissist. Okay, so what are some of the ways to disarm somebody that is playing this racket, this narcissistic game of life? Some phrases maybe that will work with them and communicating with them?
So all the best phrases are going to be around disarming them, in the sense that you're not going to get down into the mud with them. They often use phrases that they know will inflame you. You're a deadbeat dad. Okay. You're a neglectful mother. You've never made any money. You know, things that they know. And as a human being, it takes the will of like Superman or Wonder Woman not to go, you think I'm a crappy mother? I just picked the kids up today. I fed them dinner. I was at Girl Scouts. Yeah. What are you talking about? Yeah. To instead of that, saying, I hear what you're saying. I disagree with what your proposition is or what your statement was, but you are certainly entitled to your opinion. You know, things like that, where you're taking yourself out of the emotion of it. Beautiful. And you're looking at it as if you're reporting the news. Yeah. And I always tell people to think of it as just the facts, ma'am, you know, like the old television show, or just the facts, or, you know, so it takes, you know, that's why I tell people to put up steel boundaries, or to go no contact or minimum contact, because that way you don't have to be holding on to your emotions all the time. It's just that little bit of time that you have contact with them, or that one or two times you have to text or email with the person. And you just say things that are going to not get you down into the mud with it. You know, if they send you an email that's like filled with all kinds of vitriol, which is one thing that they do, or they send you a text where it's so long you have to hit see more in order to keep reading the whole thing. Sure. You just pick through the one or two things through there that you may have to respond to, like what time to pick up your kid on Wednesday. You just say, I have received your email. I disagree with what you say. And you can pick up Johnny at 3:00 on Wednesday. You know, just that way, just the facts. And that way you've refuted what they've said. You haven't like not responded. Sure. Because otherwise, you know, because remember that every text, every email, everything you put your hand to, every social media post, everything is a potential trial exhibit. It's all a potential trial exhibit for them and for you. So don't give anything away that is going to be easy, low-hanging fruit for them to use against you when you end up in front of a judge, or if you end up in front of a judge.
Okay, so basically, you're saying dial down the amygdala by just being factual And it must be, I couldn't help but to think it's very expensive to divorce a narcissist because they want gobs and gobs of attention and time, and then they create gobs and gobs of injury. So I'm imagining that you spend a lot of time being a psychologist with the person that's on the other end of the demean, devalue, destroy, which can get very, very costly.
Yeah, so the average cost of a divorce is $15,000 across the country. I think that's
Okay.
actually a very low number. I'm not sure where that number comes from, but
Uh-huh.
I think that they also use figures for people who are in very remote areas where maybe their lawyer was $150 an hour or something, all the way to like LA where it's like $1,200 an hour.
Yeah.
So I just think that that number is pretty low, but that's the average cost of a regular divorce. The average cost of a divorce with a narcissist is about 4 times as much, so $60,000. And it can really, I've known many people who've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars. The
Absolutely.
the problem is that narcissists get supply from jerking you around.
Yes.
So if you are engaging in, and I definitely want to make sure I get this into this show so that people hear me, don't try the collaborative process. It's just an opportunity for the narcissist to jerk you around. And don't try this whole thing where lawyers are sending letters back and forth to try to settle the case. It's like trying to catch a wave and pin it down, because they'll constantly be changing the goalpost, moving the goalpost. You
Mhm.
know, they'll send a letter, and even if you go back and say, okay, I accept 100% of every point that you offered, now the game is already changed. Well, it's changed, and by the way, it's changed because it's your fault, because you took too long to respond,
Yeah.
because something else happened that you had no control over, but they're blaming it on you, and now that deal is off the table. And
Okay.
now you just spent $5,000 in attorney's fees for your lawyer to write the letter, for your lawyer to read the letter, for you to discuss the letter with your lawyer. All of these things cost a lot of money, and they just give the narcissist supply. So don't bother.
So these are some of the tricks that they play. So moving the goalposts, that's a really good one. Yeah, noted. Audience, note this because my audience, people who are listening, are very, very well versed in narcissism. They understand the games. They understand the cues and clues, and then the devastating impact. And many people listening have been through divorce, have divorced either their mothers, their fathers. We talk about estates and narcissistic tricks at the end of death, and of course, people who divorce their significant other. So yes, the more savvy people are about these goalpost movings and tricks of the charades they play to gain power and control, the better off. And so one of the things I wanted to ask you is, does mediation really help? Because I think mediation is the spirit of, you know what, we're two fair people, we're going to meet at the table, and this nice person over there is going to help us split our assets and write up a game plan for the children. And I know it'll sting on both ends, but at the end of the game, it'll be really fair. So is this a waste of money when you're divorcing a narcissist?
It depends. The answer is it depends. If you're going into a mediation with the attitude what you just described, 100%, it'll be a very expensive conversation that won't bear any fruit at all. But if
Okay.
you go into a mediation totally prepared with a super strong strategy, with invincible leverage that convinces the narcissist that they are going to be exposed in some way if they don't settle this case today, then you have to have a lawyer who's right on top of it, ready to be super offensive, number one,
Okay.
and you prepare for mediation as if you're preparing for trial. Then your lawyer has to be ready to be typing up the agreement as you're sitting there, because you want to just, as soon as you have an agreement, hit print and everybody signs everything. Because again, with the moving of the goalpost, the minute the ink is dry, like even as you're walking to the parking lot, they're changing the deal.
Yeah.
Or they're trying to renege on the deal. I once had a guy, I was representing the wife, and the husband was a super flaming narcissist who, at the end of the mediation, it was like midnight. We'd been mediating for like 15 hours. I noticed that he started writing a check for the mediator's fees from an account that was just agreed that the wife would receive. So he was hoping that nobody would notice, and here he is paying the mediator, you know, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, whatever it was, out of an account that was just given to the wife. And I said, hey, you can't do that. And he says, oh, she knows I'm good for it. I'll pay her back. And I said, okay, well, and my client's over there going, it's fine, it's fine, it's fine. And of course, because she'd been, you know, abused by him for so many years. And so I said, okay, fine. If that's what she wants to do, fine. But we're going to write it into the agreement that you're going to pay her back within X number of days. And here's how you're going to pay her back. He jumps up, gets right in my face, sticks his finger in my face and says, I'm going to have you disbarred. I'm reporting you to the bar. And I said, reporting me to the bar because you're writing a check from an account that just was given to the wife? Sure. Go ahead. You know? Yeah. So, but he was so mad that I caught him. And already he was trying to renege on the deal. Already he was, you know, doing some sneaky thing, and we weren't even done. So that's what they do. So you have to be ready to have them sign immediately, and you have to kind of have them surrounded. And part of the whole surrounding thing is having all kinds of leverage, like, hey, if we don't settle today, here's how it's going to go. Right. Here is what I'm going to file. Here are the people we're going to bring as witnesses to court. Yeah. Here is how you're going to get exposed. You know, your boss is going to find out that you like to wear women's clothing at home or whatever. Okay. You know, I mean, I've had these cases, you know. We're going to file a civil battery case against you for infecting my client with herpes. You know, I mean, embarrassing things. Those are all great pieces of leverage.
So at the bottom line, can you really successfully negotiate with a narcissist? It sounds like you've got to really pin them down, and you've got to seal the deal quickly, and you've got to have all of these different checks and balances in place that threaten them if they don't behave, so to speak.
100%.
Is that how you really negotiate with the narcissist?
That's exactly how you do it. You're ethically manipulating the manipulator. And here's the thing, most narcissists attract empaths. So most of the time, the person who has to do all this pinning down is the empath. And the empath is the person who goes, oh, I don't want to fight. I don't like conflict. I don't want to be mean. I don't want to go after them. I just want what's fair. I don't want to spend a lot of money on this, you know, and then you're just going to be taken advantage of over and over and over again. And that's the person that it's not until, you know, 2 years in and $150,000 in legal fees later, that empath finally goes, all right, screw it. Yes. I want to fight now. Yes. But by then you're already so freaking beat up by the process. Exactly. So you got to come out of the gate. It's counterintuitive, and it feels really foreign to that person who's been so used to enabling that narcissist and trying to help that person and trying to be the nice one and trying to be kind. But you have to do it if you just want to get back to what's fair, whatever the law provides.
So that's where they need your backbone, because they don't have it. And the narcissist depends on the empath to be empathic and to bend and give in. And that's where you come in and you give them a reality check of what that means to them in the long run, dollars and cents wise and child custody wise. I know that you have a free gift that you are offering the listeners, and so tell us a little more about that and how they can get a hold of that free gift, please?
Yes, so the free gift is the free Crush My Negotiation prep worksheet. They can just go to winmynegotiation.com and grab it. It's 15 pages, and it's kind of like the beginnings of all of the things that you need to do to think about negotiating with a narcissist. I also have a program called Slay Your Negotiation with the Narcissist, and Slay stands for developing a super strong strategy, which includes figuring out what kind of narcissist you're dealing with and what to expect from them, and developing a vision, and then an action, actual action steps. And then L stands for creating invincible leverage, which is ultimately going to be what motivates and squeezes that narcissist into doing what you want them to do. A stands for anticipating what the narcissist is going to do and being 2 steps ahead of them. And Y stands for focusing on your case and on you. And I have a lot of self-care things in that particular module as well, but also teaching you how to be on the offensive rather than constantly be on the defensive. So that's what Slay Your Negotiation is. If they get the worksheet, they'll also be invited to my free webinar. Once they download the free worksheet, they'll get an invitation to my free webinar on the 3 must-have secrets to communicating with a narcissist, which is like about an hour long as well. So I have a lot of free stuff for people so that they can start to feel that backbone, start to feel empowered, as you said.
And then one additional question. I have quite an international audience. Do you do Skype and Zoom? Can you help people in France and Australia and England and Thailand and etc.?
So the program is actually all pre-recorded modules. As soon as they purchase the program, they immediately can download it all, and they have access to everything, because a lot of the people who purchase my program, they have like mediation next week or something, and they need help immediately. So the program I've sold to people literally on pretty much every continent, in every state and every place in the world other than maybe Antarctica, the North Pole. It's pretty crazy to me, but it is, they're universal principles. I do some limited in-person life coaching via Zoom. It's kind of limited just because I do have demand from people all over the world. So I don't have infinite number of spots for that, but I do some limited one-on-one strategy sessions as well.
Okay, and people are really going to be very appreciative of a legal defense mechanism. I talk a lot about defense mechanisms in the process of healing from narcissistic abuse. And sometimes you just have to have someone to stand by your side and be that backbone and objectify the information so that you don't get caught up in the emotions of it and sell yourself short. So anything else that you would like to communicate to the audience?
Just don't give in and don't give up. Narcissists are the worst right before they're getting ready to give up. They go into these narcissistic rages and tantrums because they think that by doing that, you're going to finally give in. They're just like 2-year-olds having a tantrum on the floor. Yeah. The more you give in to that tantrum, the next time that 2-year-old's going to cry longer and louder because they figure you'll eventually give in. As a parent, narcissists are no different. So don't give in and don't give up. There are resources out there to help you get where you want to go.
So basically, you're watching arrested development in a full-grown individual in a legal setting.
100%.
Fun. Lots of fun. Okay. Well, I very much appreciate your being on the show. And audience, you can reach out to Rebecca Zung and download her free information and be in touch with her. And thank you very much for offering a legal defense mechanism to people who definitely need that backbone.
Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure.
All right. We did it.
How was that?
I thought it was great. I thought it was perfect. I love your
okay. So
I love your interview style.
Pardon me?
I said I love your interview style.
Oh, thank you. Okay, thank you. I don't know how long that was, but I'm going to air it for Thursday night on Dr. Judy WTF. So it'll be a taped thing.
And you're putting it on your on YouTube as well, right?
Yeah. No, this is going up on YouTube because every
perfect.
Thursday I do a show, but I'm going to be doing this show. This is the show.
Perfect. Yeah. So just let me know and tag me and everything, and I'll share it as well.
Okay, so I just need the little technical things that I will do or need to do because I'm not very techno savvy. Okay, and then let's come up with a title for this show. How about How to Legally Negotiate with a Narcissist with Rebecca Zung, Esquire?
Yeah, I mean, I would just call it How to Negotiate with a Narcissist.
Okay. All right, I'm going to say that. How to Negotiate with a Narcissist, and then I'll put your name and Esquire. Good?
Yes.
That's it. So I'm gonna post that. I'm gonna send you a copy of the post, and then you can forward that to your audience, and so they can listen to you on my show. How's that?
I think it sounds good.
Yeah, and I have quite a few listeners. They usually jump in right before the show. It's usually a question and answer thing, but I think I'm just going to straight up have this be a recorded show.
Okay.
Yeah. Good.
I like it. All right, so my turn now.
Yeah. I just want to make sure that I look decent. I don't know. I'm not loving the lighting on my face, but what do you think? Your opinion?
I think it looks good. I mean, the only thing I would do if I were you is just if you have a way to put your computer on some books or something so that
just
it's
raise it up a little bit.
Yeah, that's what I would do if I were you.
Okay, let me do that. Let me put this underneath here. Okay, and I'll also post your picture. I'll give that over to my show people. Okay, so how is that? Is that a little bit better? Do you want it a little bit higher, or what do you say?
No, I think it's good. I just was like trying to help you because, you know, like I think as we get older, like the up the face thing is not like the best.
Okay, so maybe like a little bit higher. What do you think?
I just think for that's just
How
my
about
opinion.
That? Is that better?
Yeah. Oh, much better.
Okay, let me do that. Hold on. And then I pray that it doesn't fall. So, okay, I'm gonna get a thicker thing here and build it up.
Yeah, just for your sake, you know, I feel like up the face is not great unless you're like under 30.
Okay, how's that?
Much better.
Much better?
Much
okay,
better.
I should have done that before, but whatever. You're going to be the star of the show anyway on my show, so okay. Great, and then the mind map, I think he could just flash the mind map, so.
Yeah, well, I'm going to talk about it. I can I'll send it to my editor and have her stick it in.
Okay,
so you can, that way.
And then you can use that picture of me that I sent you with the bio.
Oh, yeah, I am. Awesome. I'll do that for my podcast. So for the podcast, I use a picture and it'll come out in the next couple of weeks. I don't know exactly when, but the YouTube, I don't use a photo because we just go right into the.
Sure.
Yeah.
And this will be a podcast as well. People will be able to access it via a podcast. They'll be able to watch it live. It'll be up there so people can pull it down from YouTube. So it's just going to be up there.
Perfect. Same with me. Yeah.
Okay, great.
All right. So I'm going to hit record in 2 places and then we'll get going. So just give me 1 second to go do that. Hi, Judy Rosenberg. I have Dr. Judy Rosenberg here. Welcome to my show, Negotiate Your Best Life. I'm so excited to have you here with me today.
Thank you.
You are a so accomplished, and you do all kinds of things in the field of psychology, but specifically on how to heal quickly from the trauma and the PTSD that people have felt from dealing with narcissists or having a narcissist in their life or in a relationship with narcissists for even years at a time.
Yes.
You've come up with some incredible tools for people to heal from that. So I want to get into all of that. But first, Judy, tell us more about you, more about your background, how you got where you are.
Sure. So just a little bit about my cultural background. I was born in Budapest, Hungary. I'm a survivor of Holocaust
Wow.
parents, and
amazing.
Yeah, and my mission since I was a little girl was to heal the world. I just thought that if I personally don't heal the world is going to blow up. So can you imagine the responsibility?
Oh my
Got to do
God.
something. You know, if I don't do something, everybody's going to blow up. So
Oh
I
my
think it
God.
started somewhere in there at a very early age. And then I, like yourself, had children. I have 2 grown sons and a beautiful grandson, beautiful family. And I think my first experience was with narcissism was that I didn't even know it was narcissism. I thought it was normal, the way my family talked to each other. Basically, here, I'll give you my definition of narcissism. In a nutshell, it's a system gone wrong where the parents put their feelings before the child. I just thought that was normal. So I up to a point, but then I started questioning it. There's something wrong here. And so having had a lot of experience with narcissists, both within my family and in the friendship circle and in various relationships, I soon learned that there was a pattern going on there. And then I got very interested in where that pattern came from and what the blueprint was behind it. And so I was always a kind of a causal thinker. I was more interested in, why is this the way it is? Why are people constantly choosing the same dynamics? Why are they constantly being tripped up by certain insults and certain treatment? So this was an evolution. Back in 2002, I was taking a Kabbalah course.
Oh, that's so funny. I took Kabbalah as well.
You did?
Wow.
Wow.
I did. I studied Kabbalah for a couple of years, actually, in like 2005 to 2007, somewhere around in there.
Okay, well, interestingly enough, I started doodling a little solution to healing global disconnect, and it was following the creation model: creation, destruction, reintegration. And so it became my mind map, and it was meant to heal global disconnect. Never did I think that it would be my psychological model. And I had a plan to launch this global project called Join the Human Race, Healing Global Disconnect. And it didn't quite turn out that way because I didn't have the budget to launch a global project. I didn't know how to do it. And so I thought, okay, it's an interesting model. I think I'll try it on my patients on the micro level. And that's where the mind map, that's how the mind map was born. And then the specialty of narcissism evolved because I didn't really know that so many people were injured in this way until I started getting call after call after call. And then the popularity about narcissism, covert narcissism, overt narcissism grew. And then by then people were saying, I'm a mess. I don't know what happened, but I feel completely diminished. What can I do to heal? And
yeah, I mean, narcissists literally suck the life out of you. I mean, they literally are like leeches.
Yes. I call it the vampiring effect.
Yeah. I didn't even realize that until I was dealing with narcissists of my own, but I literally, one in particular that I had to deal with, I felt like was literally draining the life out of me.
Yes.
And I said it's like a leech, but
Yeah.
I had I didn't even have the vocabulary to go, oh, it's an energy vampire, or it's this or it's that. I hadn't studied anything about narcissism yet. I just knew that that's how I felt.
Well, over time, I developed a vocabulary, and the vocabulary includes words like psychovirus and the vampiring effect and the double dungeon of darkness, where you cannot turn to your mother, you cannot turn to your father. So basically, you're checkmated in your emotions, and so you start degenerating because you don't have the inner strength, you don't have the core sense of self, as you were talking about earlier. We were talking about how this empty shell needs to be fed all the time. So the parents are supposed to do that in the first phase of life. And if that's not done, there's this hollowness and emptiness and nobody to turn to. So they basically start imploding, but then they can't do that. So they have to suck to beef up and become as whole as they can muster up to be. Did the screen freeze? Hello?
Second, because
Okay.
Judy, can you hear me?
Yeah, it froze.
Okay, so yeah, you froze, and so I didn't hear anything after hollowness or emptiness. So if you could just go back. So let me just go back and start recording again.
Okay.
Go ahead. So there's this hollowness and emptiness.
Yes, I call it a double dungeon of darkness, because how we form our core sense of self, we blueprint off of our parents. They're supposed to give us eye contact, skin contact, attunement, mirroring, breastfeeding, etc. And if we don't get those elements, I call it psychological nutrients. If we don't get those psychological nutrients, then we're not really building that core sense of self. And if we don't have anybody to turn to, then we will start borrowing energy, that vampiring that takes place, and we borrow people's energy because we don't want to, the person doesn't want to collapse inside. And so that's where the other person will feel sucked dry.
That is such a beautiful way of describing it, because they just have this little inner fragile ego that they just feel like they need to constantly feed externally with this narcissistic supply, and that's how they do it, by pulling it from other people. But it's this black hole, it can never be filled.
That's correct. Right.
And they can never heal. I mean, they can't be rehabilitated.
They can't. What I'm finding is that most people will fire their therapist because they don't want to go there. They don't want to go into the hole in the soul. They've survived that way. It's a very, very difficult journey, because you have to awaken or develop empathy. Without empathy, you can't truly connect to another human being. And so when empathy has been burned out of your system, or never even taught as a model, then you're operating on a whole new level. Then it's power and control. So you don't have faith in human connection. So if you don't have faith in human connection, let's buy some pretty objects. Let's play with people. Let's use this person or that person to muster up a sense of self. So it's a really, really ugly game. And it ends up breaking down into chaos, defenses, and then the final breakdown, because systems that are not sustainable, as you know, they collapse.
Yeah, and that's the discard phase.
That's the discard phase, correct.
Yeah. Right. And during the discard phase, you still see them coming back and love bombing and all that sort of thing, because the love bomb is really a methodology of control that they use.
Yeah, because they just want to put you in formaldehyde. They want you up on the shelf, and then they want Betty or Larry or Henry or whoever all up there waiting for them to um, reconnect. Because as you mentioned, the other side of the coin is that they often pair with empaths. They often pair with people who have been injured at a causal level, and they too have not received the emotional supplies from their parents, and they have abandonment issues. So when you pull up their abandonment issues, they're very, very ready to hang on again or reconnect with the toxic tie, because love in any form in this particular dynamic is better than no love at all. So they will play on that, and it is really, really disastrous for the person who is involved with the narcissist, because it's a never-ending game until somebody intercepts the game and pulls the plug on the lies and systems gone wrong that make up for this entire dance.
Absolutely. So you have developed this incredible mind map that you created for healing. And I wanted to go through it because I think it's really genius what you've put together. And
Thank you.
If people use it in, working with you or somebody from your team,
Yeah.
you actually say that they can see results within 12 weeks.
The mind map is designed to take place in 10 sessions.
And 10 sessions.
10 sessions, and then there's usually a little bit of follow-up, so you're not wrong with the 12 weeks. Sometimes I like to spread it out so that they recontact me a couple of weeks after the 10 weeks, or maybe 3 weeks later. So in essence, the mind map is a from, through, to model. From the past and the encodings of the past, through dismantling the here and now and the effects on the psyche, to healing, reconnecting, and paradigm shifting out of the mess. So that's the game plan. Takes place in 10 sessions. Unlike traditional therapy, the sessions are very, very, specific. So session number 1, no mystery. We're going to talk about childhood wounds and how the individual was wounded by the blueprint, mom, dad. I call it the cause. Mom and dad are the cause. Now I want to distinguish cause from fault, because this is multi-generational. So it's important to know that the parents also psychologically inherited their bad blueprint and passed it along to the people, to us, everybody, multi-generationally, because nobody comes out of childhood wound-free. It's just impossible. And so we've got to locate it at that level. So the 5 childhood wounds are physical abuse, sexual abuse, verbal abuse, neglect, and control smothering. And these wounds affect people in different ways. So by going back into that area and discovering who done it, what happened, and what age, people then have an idea of why they're feeling what they're feeling. And then we have to go back into the amygdala, which is the reaction to the wounds, because all of this material is unconscious. And that's why cognitive behavioral therapy is not enough, because it merely addresses the cognitions, which are the conscious messages that we store in panel 3, which are the encodings. But what is often missed is the pre-verbal, the unconscious material, which is what the baby is absorbing, and the subtle messages that they're incorporating into the fiber of their being. So if a mother neglects the child, or the child is not mirrored or attuned to them, the child may go inward because it doesn't have the ability to call themselves out, because that's the parent's job. So imagine the messages going on here, not cognitive, but definitely received. I'm not lovable, I'm not wanted, I'm not important, I don't matter, I'm not effectual, there's this hopelessness, I'm uncomfortable. The amygdala is reacting because there are no words here. So the baby's crying, the baby is having stomach aches and muscle tension, and then eventually learned helplessness. Martin Seligman learned helplessness. The baby realizes that he or she has no agency in the world. So now I'm on panel 3. So now the encoding is, I'm powerless. I have no meaning in life. I'm not lovable. I'm not good enough. I don't matter. These are the lies that we have to identify, because what happens in childhood is that the baby will identify with how the parents see them, because we see ourselves in the eyes of our mothers and fathers. That's how we self-define. And if we don't have a very good mirror that we're staring at, we're in trouble. So then this sets the person up for what I call the WTF, or the what the Freud. Okay, so here comes a partner, let's say. And that partner is somebody that reminds them of the injury of not mattering. And at first, they feel that they've conquered the not mattering part because they're being love bombed. Wow, finally, somebody thinks I'm mattering. And so I think I'll pair myself with this individual. And pretty soon, those little crumbs of mattering become very, very intermittent. And as we know, intermittent reinforcement is the most powerful reinforcement schedule of all, because if I receive a crumb, wow, that's really special, as opposed to lots of regular reinforcements and what I call is a secure attachment, because people who are injured are used to insecure attachment. And so by conquering the person that treats them like mom or dad, they're going back into the repetition principle, and they're trying to win the game that they didn't win then, and they'll never win this round. And then they go down into chaos because they get re-triggered, and then they try to defend themselves, and this is where the drug, sex, rock and roll comes in, and whatever else they do. Some people cut themselves, some people just simply
this is self-flagellation.
Yeah, they opt out of life. Some people defend by watching porn or being on the cell phone all day, and there's just so many creative ways that people defend themselves. And at the end of that game, they break down. There's that blowout. There's that final, the final discard or the final breakdown where they're suicidal or they're homicidal. This could be an explode also. It doesn't have to necessarily be an implode. So what do we do when we can't hold our feelings? We're either imploding and destroying ourselves, or we're projecting and exploding onto other people.
And a lot of people are just stuck in there, stuck on in that level, and they never get. So I just want to kind of to give people a picture of what you're describing. You have this mind map, and we're going to go ahead and make sure we show it on the video. But for the people who are listening versus on the podcast, I want to just kind of give them a visual. It's 9 boxes. Is her mind map, and so just picture 9 boxes, kind of like a Brady Bunch sort of look, and the top row is your past, and that's where you talk about your wound, reaction, and encoding, which you just described. And that middle row is your current, your where you are now, and that's your chaos, your defenses, and your breakdown or breakthrough.
Correct.
And then you take people through each one of these things so that they have to actually spend time understanding what their wounds are, how they've reacted to them, what their encoding is. Like you actually take them through this so they understand how they ended up where they are today. Right. And then now we're getting into the third row, which is the last 3 boxes, which is your paradigm shift, your healing, and unity. So why don't we go through those? So they've gone to their breakdown and breakthrough, and so now
Okay. I just want to back up for a moment to the breakdown, breakthrough.
sure.
The breakthrough is actually the release of the psychological toxins. It's very important that they get in touch with the cause and hold energetically responsible the injurers. And we do that through a series of truth conversations. And in the truth conversations, they get to actually express all the range of emotions that they were not able to express to their primary caregivers, usually mother or father. Now, please know, audience, that I'm not advising people to call mommy or daddy and give them a lowdown of what they did to you. This is something that would re-injure the person, because if you're dealing with narcissistic parents, they don't have the empathy to heal. The herder can't be the healer. So it's a bad choice to call your parents and try to work this through with them. So what we do is we work it out in the therapeutic environment so that they get to release these toxins, reprocess everything, identify the lies as opposed to identify with the lies. And then they can start moving into the paradigm shift. The paradigm shift is where they are now aware of their cracked lens of perception, which is all the lies and the patterns that they bought into, and now they're seeing clearly. Their boundaries are more defined, and I refer to the biological model of the permeable and the non-permeable and the semi-permeable model. The permeable is more the borderline features where people don't have the boundaries and they can't set limits and they don't have the self-esteem. And then the non-permeable are more the narcissists and the paranoids, they're walled off. And then the semi-permeable are the people who are able to vet, who can come into their inner circle or their medium circle. They can vet what's healthy for them, what's not healthy for them. And then they can choose appropriate growth partners. They could choose synergistic partners, because it then becomes not a 1 + 1 is less than 2 or even less than 1 formula, which is the vampiring effect. It becomes a new game of life where the 1 + 1 is now a greater than 2. It's a synergistic effect. So now people are taught to pair with growth partners, whether they be business partners or marital partners or friendship partners, relationship partners, doesn't matter. It's the 1 + 1 is greater than 2 phenomenon, and that's the new game of life. And then they get to encode what is going to support that particular system gone right. Because remember, we're turning the system gone wrong around 180 degrees, and now the encoding becomes, well, what are you putting in your mouth? Is that evolving you, or is that devolving you? Is that friendship evolving you, or is that friendship demeaning, devaluing, and destroying you? Is that choice in education authentic to you? Do you really want to become an attorney or a psychologist, or what is authentic to you? So this is where it becomes real, where people are choosing and encoding, and now they are, quote, the cause of part 2 of their life. And now they're able to basically construct their own world. Who do you want in your world? What kind of food do you want to eat? What kind of people are enhancing you? What kind of colors do you want to surround yourself with?
Well, and I would even add to that is, like, I call it your inner head trash, that little idiot that lives inside of your brain that says you're not good enough in some way. When I was kind of dealing with this whole paradigm shift myself years ago,
Yeah.
I had to like retrain my brain, like, who's having that thought? Is it the idiot? Or is it the person that I'm creating myself to be?
Correct.
Is it the new person?
Exactly.
And distinguishing where that old thought pattern is actually coming from. And if it's true, look for evidence in reality. Is it true? Most of us, I think, have this syndrome that, and it's kind of cliche, but it's true, that if you did a talk in front of 100 people in the room and 99% of them said you were amazing, and it was the best talk they ever heard,
right,
and one person says you sucked, you're going to go home and think about the one person who said you sucked the whole entire time.
And so this is the difference between cognitive behavioral therapy and affirmations. We're actually dismantling panel 3. So the very thing that triggered the individual, I don't matter, I suck, I'm stupid, I'm incompetent, I'm never going to be good enough, all of that stuff gets literally dismantled, and it's pinned back to the cause. It goes back to the cause. This is not the message. This is not my message. This is a message that was blueprinted. It's inauthentic. It's based on a lie. We're releasing the emotional toxicity. So if a person with narcissistic personality dynamics comes along and demeans or devalues, tries to destroy, that panel 3 is now no longer active. We have dismantled the bomb so they can press and press and press as much as they want and no reaction. And that's how you step out of the game of dancing with the narcissist. You dismantle the whole system. And so they walk away because it's not interesting to you anymore. You don't beg and plead that they see you differently, or no, I'm not stupid, no, I'm not ugly, come on, don't you think I'm beautiful, please love me. So that whole game is shot. So
because you already know that you have internal value. You've created that internal feeling. I mean, we all are inherently valuable, we just don't feel it.
Right. And so it's really a matter of dismantling something that people are very unconscious of. They've been set up to do this. It's sort of like kind of like a grooming. They've been groomed to think this way. They've been groomed to be taken advantage of. And once you shine the truth light on all these aspects, then it loses its power. It's kind of like like Dorothy, once the curtain is pulled back from the wizard, okay, or Toto does it, the truth dog. Toto, the truth dog, pulls back the curtain, and there's this silly old man manipulating the levers, creating this land of Oz, and it's just an illusion. And that's what people get to experience in the process of the mind map system. It's their parents' creation. It's been a multi-generational creation, and it has nothing to do with their authentic self. And once this is exposed, they could start to grow.
So beautiful. What an incredible tool you have created. So brilliant. Where can people find out more about you?
They can go to psychologicalhealingcenter.com, and everyone is welcome to a free PDF copy of my book, Be the Cause, Healing Human Disconnect. And you can also purchase it on Amazon. I have a few videos that people can purchase. One is the 9-panel mind map system to healing that I created, and it is a complete A through Z, goes with the reading, and I go through each and every aspect of the mind map. So it makes it really, really simple. And then I have a grand star in the show, I want everybody to know, and that is my grandson at age 4. He broke down the mind map from a child's point of view. Amazing. And I did not put the words in his mouth. And
amazing.
I'll just give you a hint of panel 1, 2, 3. Panel 1 is the boo-boo grandma. And then panel 2 is the boo-boo hurts. And panel 3 is you think you're bad. And that's straight up from
amazing.
4-year-old.
Amazing. So, yeah. Amazing. And actually, if you go to psychologicalhealing.com, you can also get a free copy of your mind map as well.
Yeah. Psychological Healing Center.
psychologicalhealingcenter.com. And you also have a YouTube channel. Tell us about that.
Very fun name, very serious topics. It's called Dr. Judy WTF with the Freud, and it was inspired by Sigmund Freud because Dr. Freud talks about the repetition compulsion, and if we do not make the unconscious conscious, we're doomed to repeat it. And the mind map is meant to intercept that system gone wrong and turn this repetition, compulsion, broken record thing and move it along, process, dismantle, heal. So please do subscribe to my channel, and you can download a copy of the mind map, and all of this is in my book. And then I also have the Peaceful Healing Dialogue, which is a great way of negotiating with people so that you get your point across and you don't keep saying you, and break the bond, where you have a chance at really ingesting and digesting what the other person is saying and create a bridge, an empathic bridge, and prevent a breakdown.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. This has been so wonderful, and I think it's going to help so many people. I really appreciate you coming by and talking about all of these things with us.
Very, very appreciative of you for having me on your show. Thank you.
Thank you.